Hello, everyone. Welcome back to 3 News Now. I'm Stephanie Haney. It's Wednesday, January 6th, and I come to you now with breaking news as we continue to follow the riots that have happened in the Capitol in Washington, D.C., following President Donald Trump's rally with his supporters who have been objecting to the certification of the votes in the Electoral College. The breaking news at this hour, shortly before 7:30 p.m., is that Congress does expect to continue the process of the certification of Electoral College votes today. Now, we're not exactly sure if the people who were previously planning on objecting continue to plan to object, but we do know that Congress is committed to getting back into the chambers and continuing that process tonight. Also, breaking at this hour, Twitter has locked President Donald Trump's account, so he will not have access to post any more tweets for the next 12 hours. We'll get more to that in just a moment. But today has been a deadly day. We knew that it would be an historic day when we went to bed last night. When we woke up this morning, we did not know what to expect. And a woman has died today during the riots that broke out at the Capitol. That's been confirmed by multiple outlets, and the Washington Post is reporting that this woman was killed by Capitol police. At least 5 other people have been hospitalized as well. This woman was reportedly shot in the chest inside the U.S. Capitol building while pro-Trump supporters tried to break into the House chamber. That's been confirmed by NBC News. Now, this happened this afternoon, shortly after President Donald Trump addressed his supporters and vowed never to concede in a speech on the ellipse in front of a large crowd of pro-Trump supporters. And then after that, those supporters then marched on to the Capitol, turned into riots where people squared off with Capitol police. Once there, these rioters broke through several barriers placed at the steps of the Capitol building where the certification of the Electoral College process was underway. Now, at this point, there had already been objections presented, and the House and the Senate had moved to the process where they debate those objections. But then once these rioters made their way into the Capitol building, everything was paused. The senators and the members of the House of Representatives were told to shelter in place. Shortly after that, D.C.'s Mayor Muriel Bowser put the area of the District of Columbia on a curfew that was to begin at 6 p.m., and that extends until 6 a.m. on Thursday morning, and the Washington, D.C. National Guard has been activated. Now, outlets are also reporting that President Donald Trump was not involved in the activation of that National Guard, and as we said, Congress expects, once things clear, to resume, hopefully, at 8 p.m. Now, more on to President Donald Trump's comments made during the midst of these riots and unrest in Washington, D.C. At least one of his tweets was deleted. While the president did tell people eventually to go home, he also seemed to be justifying their actions. This tweet from President Donald Trump that has been deleted by Twitter, presumably, read, "These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long." Now, before that was deleted, it was flagged by Twitter for obtaining disputed information about the election. This is just one of the claims about the election that President Trump has been making repeatedly since November, that there was widespread fraud that has not been proven. There's been no evidence shown that there's been widespread fraud. There's been no evidence shown of any irregularities that would have impacted the result in the election. Now, in that tweet, the president also added, "Go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever." He also posted a video message on Twitter that Twitter prevented people from liking, commenting on, and retweeting. Now, people were still able to quote tweet that video and share it and add a message with that, but they were not able to just immediately retweet it because Twitter had warned that there was a risk of violence in the video. And in that video, President Trump did tell people to go home, but he started it by saying that the election was stolen from him, that he won it in a landslide, which has been proven time and time again to not be true. But he does say in that video that we have to have peace, we have to have law and order, we have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. But it was at that speech that he made earlier in the day that he encouraged his supporters to head to the Capitol. Now, all of this has happened against the backdrop of Vice President Mike Pence going against what President Donald Trump had said, and President Trump said that Pence could secure the election for him, basically. However, Vice President Pence went against that. His role today, presiding over this, was pretty much ceremonious. There was no authority that Pence had in order to do anything related to blocking the certification of the Electoral College votes. And it was Pence who tweeted this afternoon, late in the afternoon into the early evening, tweeted this: "The violence and destruction taking place at the U.S. Capitol must stop, and it must stop now. Anyone involved must respect law enforcement officers and immediately leave the building. Peaceful protest is the right of every American, but this attack on our Capitol will not be tolerated, and those involved will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." We'll get more into the reaction that people had to exactly what has been seen today in Washington, D.C. in terms of police presence and police reaction to these violent riots that have been happening in the Capitol today. Today, Governor Mike DeWine here in Ohio spoke with our 3 News' Rutch Mitchell, and he said this is not the way democracy works. He said that the scene and the chaos at the Capitol looked like something that came out of a third world country, not the United States of America. And he said that even people who believe President Trump should have been elected or was elected can't be in favor of this. Now, DeWine, remember, was the honorary co-chair of Trump's campaign here in Ohio. He tweeted a statement. He said that this is an embarrassment to our country. It must stop immediately, and that the president should call for the demonstrators to leave our Capitol building. He went on to say that the final step in the constitutional process of electing our president has been disrupted. The stopping of the count of the Electoral College votes has occurred because of the security of the U.S. Capitol being breached by a violent mob. DeWine went on to say, as a nation of laws, this is not acceptable. Lawlessness is not acceptable, and this is an affront to our Constitution and everything we hold dear. DeWine continued on and said those who breached the Capitol breached the Constitution. Peaceful demonstrations outside the Capitol are an exercise of the demonstrators' First Amendment rights. Stopping the constitutional process by which we elect the president is not. Now, as I said earlier, Congress is expected to resume at 8 p.m. Not certain if it will be exactly at 8 p.m., but that is what they are expecting and hoping to do. They do plan to resume tonight. They will go into the night if they have to. Previously, we knew that about 140 Republican members of the House of Representatives and about a dozen senators were planning to object to the results of Electoral College votes coming before them today, which is their constitutional duty to certify. Our 2 senators for Ohio, Republican Rob Portman and Democrat Sherrod Brown, have said they would not be objecting to it. Sherrod Brown went on to say that any senator who objects to certifying the election results is betraying their oath of office. So, again, Senator Portman and Senator Brown in agreement that the results of the Electoral College should not be objected to. On the House side of things, however, our representatives had a different story. We have 16 representatives. 12 of those are Republicans. We did know several on the record had said that they did plan to object. Representative Jim Jordan did object. Also, Representative Warren Davidson, Representative Bob Gibbs, Representative Bill Johnson. One person who said he would not be objecting was Representative Anthony Gonzalez. And this is the statement that Representative Gonzalez released today. He said, "As a very tense situation continues to unfold, I condemn these violent mobs in the strongest terms. The peaceful transition of power is essential to our democracy, no matter how difficult it is, and we all must honor this sacred tradition. Please pray for our country." Other reactions from prominent Ohio politicians include one from former Governor John Kasich. Remember, he ran against Trump in 2016 for the candidacy for the Republican ticket. He said this: "What I'm seeing happening in our nation's capital is an absolute disgrace, and it was brought on by demagoguery and lies. It's unbelievable that this could be happening in our precious America. We must learn from this." Now, turning to the reaction that we've seen from everyday Americans on social media, a lot of the conversation was surrounding what we saw from the police presence in Washington, D.C. Jason Carter tweeted, "Where are the police for this violent protest? They sure were there for a peaceful protest of Black Lives Matter. Again, privilege at its finest." two of our most prominent athletes here in the Cleveland area, including Cleveland Browns wide receiver Jarvis Landry, who is a black man, tweeted, "Glaring difference between a peaceful protest and this. I couldn't imagine how many of our people would be hurt by now." Kevin Love, Cleveland Cavalier, a white athlete, tweeted, "An absolute disgrace what's happening at the U.S. Capitol right now, and a blatant example of inequity in how law enforcement chooses to deal with those involved." So again, that was a large part of the conversation on social media today. Reporters who were on the ground commenting on the fact that there was a marked difference in the response of the police, a very much observable, less violent response from the people who were there to put down this violent riot in the Capitol. Contrast this to an old tweet from President Donald Trump related to protests that were happening in Oregon. He wrote this many months ago: "Anarchists, agitators, or protesters who vandalize or damage our federal courthouse in Portland or any federal buildings in any of our cities or states will be prosecuted under our recently reenacted Statues and Monuments Act. Minimum 10 years in prison. Don't do it." So the stark contrast between President Trump's reaction to those demonstrations and the reaction today apparent in just that old tweet. And there were lots of videos of rioters floating around social media. You could see them harassing the media. However, one pro-Trump supporter earlier in the day said this is a quote: "This should be a wake-up call to the media and all politicians, especially the career politicians. The people are sick and tired of the way our country is being governed." However, that was not the majority of the conversation on social media. There were many calls for invoking of the 25th Amendment and talk of impeachment of President Donald Trump. As a reminder, the 25th Amendment is invoked if the president becomes unable, unwilling, incapacitated in some way to do his job, and under those circumstances, the vice president assumes the responsibilities of the presidency. U.S. Representative David Cicilline from Rhode Island talked about this, and he said that this is what he posted: "Vice President Pence can help put down this attempted coup if he wants to. I'm circulating a letter urging him to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove Trump from office. If he doesn't, then Congress should go ahead and impeach the president." Taking it a step further, Representative Ilhan Omar said she was drawing up articles of impeachment. She posted this: "Donald J. Trump should be impeached by the House of Representatives and removed from office by the United States Senate. We can't allow him to remain in office. It's a matter of preserving our republic, and we need to fulfill our oath." Now, again, we will not be hearing from the president for the foreseeable future because his Twitter account has been locked for the next 12 hours. So that puts us through to about 7 a.m. when he can have access to that again. And the White House has called a lid. And what a lid is there will be no public statements made by the president for the rest of the evening. So as of right now, the president does not have access to his usual portals in order to get a message out there. And that video that he tweeted earlier has since been deleted. Multiple of his tweets earlier have been deleted because Twitter had previously posted that they posed a risk of violence. And in the backdrop of all of this happening today, the projections for the Georgia Senate runoff election have come in, and Democratic challenger Jon Ossoff has been projected to beat Republican incumbent David Perdue. And it was previously projected by NBC that Reverend Raphael Warnock beat Republican incumbent Kelly Loeffler. So in the midst of all of this, the Democrats have regained control of the Senate in a sense. The Senate is split now, 50-50, once these votes are certified and those two take office. And then the tiebreaker will be incoming Vice President Kamala Harris, because she will be the tiebreaker between a 50-50 Republican-Democratic split Senate. So in that sense, the Democrats have regained control of the Senate. They have control of the House. And when President-elect Joe Biden is inaugurated on January 20th, which he will be because the Electoral College votes will be certified, whether Congress people continue to object and that process has to play out or not, he simply will be certified. That will happen at the end of this. The Democrats will also control the White House. And that is a wrap-up of the historic events that have happened today on Wednesday, January 6th. We have continuing coverage of everything on WKYC.com and our WKYC app. Thank you for being here, everyone. Stay safe and be well. I'll see you back here tomorrow. I'm Stephanie Haney.